Oh, I didn't know I took myself off the stage. Hi, I'm Deirdre Vervo. Thank you so much for joining us on Let's Talk Seniors, Memory Care Issues, Alzheimer's, Dementia, and Parkinson's. I am also the owner of Just Like Home, where we have 2 homes for seniors with memory care issues in Shelton. Just regular homes, 6 and 7 people in each. Today we have a special guest. If you're ever concerned about your parents and have questions about, like, what are we doing? My parents are getting older. Things are happening to them. I don't know if it's safe in their home. I don't know how much money they have. I don't know how much their money will last. I don't know who's going to take care of them and what's happening. We have answers for you today. We have a population that is living a long time and they're needing our help. So today we are blessed to have Elanit Linder with us. She's with Aging Life Care Associate. She is an Aging Life Care Associate, sorry, and she works with families and older adults to maintain autonomy and joy as they're navigating their aging system. She has extensive experience with older adults, including assisted living, memory care. She's been the director of recreation, director of memory care, clinical community liaison, and skilled nursing, and she understands the system and will assist with knowledge and compassion. She also has an impressive education. She went to NYU and Columbia U grad school, and she's the author of a few books. But without further ado, we will introduce Elanit. Hello, Miss Elanit Linder. How are you?
Thank you so much. I was a little embarrassed while you were doing all that. I didn't know you were gonna.
Yes, I have to give you a little proper introduction. So thank you so much for coming on. And I know you love seniors. And why don't you tell us a little bit of how you got into loving seniors and helping seniors and what you do with them?
So I love to tell that story. I mean, again, I have always had friends of all ages. I am totally non-ageist, non-biased. I think that people older than me, obviously they have more life experience. I'm excited to know them, whether they are, like, I know you work with people with dementia, Alzheimer's and stuff like that. Even that, it's just, when I ran a memory care community, it was so great. These were folks who, were in different worlds, let's say. But one of the greatest stories that I share from my experience was, we had someone who used to be a marriage and family therapist, like a sex therapist, and she was very, very confused. She actually had Lewy body. She didn't have dementia or Alzheimer's. She had Lewy body. So some days not great, some days really great. But you know how ladies are, right? I was with my team, CNAs, nurses. We were chatting about dating, and she came out the best advice. And we were like, oh my gosh, of course, right? And then, that was something that we did with her. Like, we would share our stories, and it would engage that, like, the old memory, which is still so vibrant. So again,
that's awesome.
Older adults, right? More life experience than me, probably more education, more years. So I'm always excited when I meet somebody older than me, because or excited when I meet anybody. I mean, my CEO says that. She's like, Elanit still loves people, because sometimes we work with really hard cases. But so I got to this place because I always had wonderful older adults in my life, and that's in my book, Stitches for Seniors, which is available on Amazon. I dedicated it to my grandmother, both my grandmothers, my aunts, and some of the wonderful people. But that's how I got here. And then, as you mentioned, I'd been working in aging, for almost a decade, and recreation director, memory care director. And then I was like, if I really want to do this work, I need to go back for a master's. So in the middle of my career, I went back for a master's degree. And
very good.
Yeah. And then now I'm at a nonprofit, which is where we're doing the work that we'll talk about, which is so exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, what I was so excited to speak to you because I know a handful of aging counselors, agent
Yeah.
what
Aging geriatric case
there
managers. Yeah.
a lot of
So
titles.
they used to be called geriatric case managers, and then the Aging Life Care Association, which again you can look them up. Aging Life Care Association. They call themselves ALCA. We all call ourselves aging life care managers now as well. But I think it's a little confusing. But what's great about ALCA is they are, I mean, it is a process to get in there. I had to send them my resume, I had to send them 2 letters of reference. I had to send them my graduate degree. So they're really making sure that the people that they're saying, these are professionals who can advise you or have done the work. They're making sure that the people on their roster. So I'm
Well,
saying this to folks from everywhere. If you're in
yeah,
Connecticut, if you're in New York, that these are going to be people who can help you. They've been
and
vetted.
Elanit, I think I never heard of
Yeah.
geriatric counselors, aging life care associates.
Oh,
They are invaluable. I never heard of them before a few years ago. And now
yeah.
that I know them and it's
Yeah.
just an invaluable service. And why don't you speak a little bit about that service itself and what you have to offer people as an aging life care counselor and what they do? Because I don't know if people know how much help there is out there. And then tell us a little bit about what you're doing with the Jewish services. And Jewish services doesn't just mean Jewish people, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I always say care navigators, and I appreciate you. We're under Jewish Family Service of Greater New Haven. Not all JFSs; they're just social service agencies, much like Catholic Charities. We serve everybody, regardless of culture or creed or socioeconomic. We have a food pantry. We have a mental health clinic. We do still have a Holocaust survivors program. There are still thousands of survivors. We have multiple programs. That's really our main programs are mental health clinic, the aging department, which I run, and the food pantry. And so yeah, it's under Jewish Family Service, and that's how I'm able to do what I do. But yes, we help everybody. Yeah, aging life care managers keep me on track. So aging life care managers really are the specialists. Those are the go-to people. And I always say, like, I wouldn't know what I know unless I'd been on kind of all sides of the coin. Like, I wouldn't really understand assisted living unless I'd spent years in the system. I know how it works. I know how the corporations work. Each one has its different services. A benchmark, for instance, gives more higher levels of care. They have the Hoya lifts, this kind of stuff. So I wouldn't understand that system unless I'd been in it or read. I always say every conversation, please read Being Mortal by Atul Gawande. But or I wouldn't fully understand skilled nursing. I wouldn't fully understand discharge planning unless I'd been in and out of the hospitals as a clinical community liaison. And I think that this is really why ALCA says the people that we're choosing or the people that we're certifying to be a part of our association truly understand the system, because it is a very complicated system and it is tied into your finances, how much you have to spend down. What does a spend down mean? What is the difference between Medicaid and Medicare? Why does a skilled nursing have to have a case mix? Why are they trying to send me home with a skilled home care agency when I'm leaving a skilled nursing facility? It's all of these step down processes. And I on the back end understand like that sometimes hospitals are charged if people are in and out too many times, or sometimes home care agencies, and everybody's really trying to come up with the best quality of life for the individual that they can. So somebody who's a part of ALCA really understands the full scope and is also most times a licensed social worker, right? They've been through a master's degree, or some folks a PhD. I've been through a master's and then sat for their licensing. And it means that they understand the entire biopsychosocial, right? It means that the licensed clinician understands that each individual might have different meaning, right? Some people, might want to spend down to Medicaid and leave whatever they have for their kids, and they're happy to live in a studio with other older adults and like read books and go to programs, in low income senior housing. Everybody has different things that give them meaning. So having those conversations is also extremely important. And I'll get into what my favorite part of the work is, unless you have anything. I don't want to overtalk or give you pause.
No, but like, why, when, and why would somebody come to an aging life care counselor
So
like
you would
yourself?
come to an aging life care counselor. We would hope that you'd come early. And that's why Jewish Family Service and the aging department that I run, we are now running the National Council on Aging has an aging mastery program. And we're doing this for what I call becoming seniors. Everybody calls them boomers or whatever, but it's really becoming seniors. Anybody who's over 55. I've learned a lot from the program, honestly, the 10 competencies. But you want to get people in there early so you can have those conversations about finances, about quality of life, about what kind of life you want to lead. Like, do you want to stay home? Are you a social person? I was running a program the other day and I had somebody who said they loved camp. They loved camp their entire childhood. They can't wait to go to assisted living. That's their jam. They'll go to every program. And between me and you, my grandmother's like that. My dad's mom is 101. God bless her. Like,
Oh,
yep, she can see, she can hear, she can walk without the walker in her apartment. She's in independent living. You know what I mean? I'm hoping to meet her there. But she goes to every program. She's like, she goes out on Sundays for the, Sunday dinner and everything. But then I had somebody else who said, absolutely not, that they had been forced to go to camp. This was in conversation. This was in one of the groups that I was running, and they hated it. So, for them, hell would be, being caught in a one bedroom or a studio apartment where somebody was able to knock on the door and check on them or check on them if they hadn't, phoned in. Some of these assisted livings or long-term care have check-ins, right? So each person is going to have a different lens on how they want to age. So I would hope that people would come early. Where people also come, and I was going to say this is my favorite. I really love family systems work, because I really, I'm a therapist, right? I do work in the mental health clinic here too. So I love that magical moment, and here I am talking a lot, but of quiet listening, where you can draw out what the person's intention is. Because sometimes it's like a negative cognition or a positive cognition that gets in the way of somebody doing something. And I'll give you an example. One of my favorite clients, the kids were all over the country, 4 or 5 of them. So I initially had a Zoom with them. And then I met with the older adult here in Greater New Haven area. Then I met with the family again. And then I met with the client again. So what was I doing in these meetings? She was living by herself here in a condo, caregiver coming in and out. I would say probably over 97, definitely over 95. And one of the siblings was out in Cali, and they were like trying to get mom to move. Sometimes she says yes, sometimes she says no, then she's ready to move, then she's saying no. And they'd been back and forth for 2 years. So I said, okay, talk to the family. I went in and I talked to her, and I love these life cycle conversations because, again, I'm used to talking about end of life, talking about life completion, and I just enjoy finding out what people think. And most times it's the younger folks who are scared to talk about death because the older folks are like, yeah, no problem. Like, I'll go to sleep. That's the goal, because they've lived for 97 years. So I go in there and I chat with this lady and I'm like, well, how do you feel if, you pass away here by yourself in Connecticut and your kids are all over the place and then they're going to have to come in and your caregiver is going to come in, or, what if you don't press the button and your caregiver doesn't come to the next day? Like, how do you feel about that? Or how do you feel if you're in California and your kid is around the corner, and if something happens, you'll have them there with you, so we talked about pros and cons. And then we talked about the move. And it was very interesting because, like anybody with moving, right? Her cognitions were she didn't want to have to move. And we laughed. I was like, I pretty much guarantee you're not going to be the one doing the move. Like, you're not going to have to pack a box. You're not going to, you know what I'm saying? So it was that. And then we found resilience skills from when she was younger and she did have to make a big move. And I said, do you want to do that again? And she said, I could. And her mentality, her words were, put your head down and do the work. So I said, do you want to do that now? And she said, yeah, I'll just put my head down and move. And she moved. And the family couldn't believe it. But it was really figuring out what her language was. And I think for me, that's the most special part of the work is everybody has a different language that they talk to themselves with. And if we can draw that out, in healthcare, we call it person-centered care so much. But if we can draw out the intentionality of the individual that we're working with, everything just goes smoother. So
I love that, Elodie. Can I just tell you something that I did wrong with my own mom? So my mom's almost 87 and she's totally independent, still driving, living in New York, though, far from my brothers and I. So for about 5 years, since my father passed like 7 years ago, I have said to her, gee, Mom, like, if you fall, my brother and I are making the decision where you're going to live. Don't you want to pick a place out for yourself? And then I read a book about seniors, how to speak to seniors. And that was not the way to speak to her. So I was like making a worst case scenario, like you fall, you break a hip, we're going to find your place to live. Don't you want to pick one out for yourself? So when the time is right, you're going to move there. And I thought that was nice, being nice to her. But you know what the book said was, just say, what are your intentions? Like you're speaking of. Yeah. Do you want to see here? Maybe we should make your bedroom, the dining room into your bedroom. Maybe we should, put the bathroom downstairs. What do you want? But at the end, my mother herself, because she's very stubborn. And she said, all my friends are kind of passing and I don't really have people here. So I'd like to be closer to you guys. So she came up with that decision, but I apologized to her. I'm like, I'm so sorry for making you feel like you could fall and like, we're going to make the decision for you. That wasn't really the way to go about it.
You know what, though? I'm going to give you so much credit because I think our society assumes that we're going to be perfect the first time around, but it is really in these reparative moments that we really create closeness. So here you are saying to your mom, like, I made a mistake, and you and your brother were probably doing that out of fear, right? You are afraid that she might fall or that she's going to fall where she's far away from you. Yeah. And then you apologize. How beautiful is that? I mean,
because I was like, oh, I guess that wasn't the way to go about it. Because it actually didn't move her, just like your 5 kids were not moving their mom, like literally and physically not moving her because they weren't getting into what was really going on with her. But until my mother's friends were all passing, then she wanted to move for socialization.
Right. And that was her intention.
You have to get to the core because they're comfortable in their homes. My mother had a beautiful home of 50 years. They're super comfortable. So they have to get to what's going on with them. But do you find mainly the kids are coming to you or the adults themselves?
Unfortunately, I find, and again, this is something that I do need to say as well before I start talking about my clients, is that we have a case mix. I created an aging life care program here at JFS that has a case mix, like a skilled nursing facility. There is another nonprofit, ALCA, in Massachusetts, and I networked with her in order to create this program. Originally, we had tried a different model. It didn't work. We just allow people to tell us when they have reached their limit for payment. So an example would be, I had a couple, they were together for a long time. One was on disability, one was not. They had about probably over 4,000, maybe close to 4,000, let's call it 4K in Social Security a month, but they were living above their means. So these were not people who paid me. You know what I mean? They weren't even able to get married because of the disability and other things going on. They had been, life partners their whole life. So everybody has a different scenario. If you looked at that $4,000 in a yearly or pros and cons, on a financial spreadsheet, it might look like they could pay. So that couple didn't have extended family and they could not, so they didn't pay. The people who are coming to me through the Aging Life Care website, again, aginglifecareassociation.org or whatever it is, the ALCA website, the people who find me there as a Jerry case manager in the greater New Haven area, they're looking to pay, and it's usually the kids. The kids are looking for help for their parents. When people are coming to me for help, like that couple, it's usually the low socioeconomic people who are coming for themselves. Unfortunately, at this point in time, and I don't think it's my organization and I don't think that it's my department, we're still in an environment where people are coming in crisis, right? So, like, the low income folks are coming in crisis when they're saying, I'm living above my means, and my landlord of 30 years, because that's kind of what this couple was going through, is raising the rent. So they were like done. They were done, but they were coming to me when they were done. Or like, fortunately, the story that I told you about the mom moving or not moving, they came in advance. I've had clients, I had somebody living in independent living that didn't have a continuing care. And the adult was, already in dementia, right? They were already in a case where we needed to move quickly. Or I had another family who the mother had everything she needed up until a certain point and was on hospice and had about 30K left. So, had to move into skilled nursing when there was not a lot of resources to get her where she needed to go. These are kind of last minute scenarios where I helped folks navigate those next stages. But I'm finding,
if I can interrupt you, are you saying that you think people should be coming, or you would prefer people to come to kind of plan for their aging, as opposed to something has happened, like, oh, now my mom has dementia, or oh, now my parents can't afford where they live, but I mean, it kind of like doesn't seem like there's any need to interfere as a kid until something happens to your parents. Like if they're living happily and they can afford everything and nothing seems wrong, you're not planning. And I don't know, maybe, and people start to plan when something goes awry, like, oh my God, now they, one of them fell down, or my father died and my mother can't live alone. And I mean, isn't that typical?
Well, the metaphor that I use is, or when I'm giving, again, if I've gotten people in a group, or we're at the aging mastery program, or I'm running a support group, or we're out there doing a community program where we're trying to educate, I always use the example. Do you have kids? I don't know. I didn't ask you. Do you have kids that are
kids that are in their 30s?
Okay,
kids
great.
With kids.
Perfect. So here, when you were sending your kids to college, did they went off to college? You weren't like, hey, oh, go to college. And they're, yeah, sounds great, whatever. No. You talk to the school social worker. You put a plan in place. You probably planned before that in high school. You were like, you're in these special programs. We're going to put that on your little resume. What do you think you'd like to do for undergrad? There's a lot of planning that goes into that transition. Or like, think about having a baby. I have a child. When you have your first kid, you're like, okay, you might get stuff for the house, I don't know, everything, like even the pregnancy clothing, you don't have it. You get stuff, you plan ahead, people plan. And this is one stage of life where everybody's so deathly afraid of it that they're like not planning. And so what I say to folks is I'm like, you wouldn't go to college without planning. So like, if we have that conversation about end of life, if we have that conversation about there being options and having those advanced directive conversations, like I imagine, I'm saying this now, but who knows what I'm going to think at 80 or 85, but like, I love the idea of a DNH, right? Most folks don't know what a DNH is, a do not hospitalize. You can have a do not intubate, but you could also have a do not hospitalize. Like, let's say your mom.
I never heard of that.
Yeah. Let's say your mom was like, I want to live in my house. I love my house. If anything happens, I just don't want to go out. I don't want to go out. I don't want to go out to the hospital, or that's her choice. We have all of these choices. We just have to make the choices before it's an emergency. So what I try
Mhm.
to do is I try to empower people that by thinking about this, they are making a choice. You know what I mean? They are empowering themselves to live the quality of life that they want to live. So that could be anything. Like, again, using that example of one person being like, absolutely, I'd love to live with other people. My grandmother, like, send me out on every trip. You know, some of the ladies play canasta, some of them play mahjong. Everybody's got their thing. Send me in. And then somebody else being like, absolutely not. I'd rather, do my own programs by myself at home and talk to my friends on the phone or go out when I need to. So it's choices, and you can't have those choice points. You can't say do not resuscitate, which is not, it's not an intervention, right? A DNR is you've passed away and they're resuscitating you, they're bringing you back to life. And if somebody doesn't have that conversation with the family, where, like, after 80, if you're resuscitated, it's not like on Grey's Anatomy, right? They're having to push through your rib cage, right? And depending how long you're out, and I don't mean out like passed away, how long you're gone, the blood has to start pumping. Some people come back with vascular dementia. If you don't have those quality of life conversations, or some people broken ribs, different things happen, punctured organs, like, if you don't have that conversation, right, where you're like, do you want to recover from that? Because, and I use my grandmother as an example all the time, and I hope she appreciates this. Hi, Grandma. I'll send this to her once you've got it up. But I don't know how she knew to wait. Her partner, my grandfather, he was in his 80s, maybe even say 85, maybe 83. But he'd played golf that day. They'd had dinner. He was watching football on the couch. She was knitting in the chair next to him. And he fell asleep. He passed away. And she waited. She waited. She knew not to call EMS, because EMS, their job is to resuscitate you. She knew he just wanted to pass away. She knew that he had completed his life, and she waited. I still have to ask her how she knew to wait. But again, 83, 85, that used to be like quality of life. And she knew that my grandfather didn't want to then recover from being resuscitated, which is being brought back to life. So by them having that conversation, she has lived. She's lived almost 20 years without him, but she's created, with autonomy, her own new life.
So would people come to you, Elanit, to create this with their kids? Do
Mm-hmm.
they come to you to find housing? Do they come to
Yeah.
you to what kind of things do you offer? Like, what kind of services are you offering that they can come to you for?
So I appreciate you drilling down. That's why we call it care navigation. So each person, it's different. Some people need that therapeutic family system. Some people are hospitalized and have a discharge plan to a skilled nursing facility and don't have family in the area, and they want us to come in and do that. I had a family who had me checking in on this was somebody with a little bit more money, had me checking in on their mother once a week, and I
So
would go in.
you become their advocate, where their
Yeah,
kids,
absolutely.
like the advocate for their kids. You're the voice for their children.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Or, sometimes the voice for the older adult. You know, if they're wanting something that's different than what the kids want, and they are not conserved, again, it's very, most people are not conserved these days. I mean, it's not something that's done all the time. You have to not be completely with it, um, and they are their own power of attorney, or their children are the power of attorney. Just having those conversations and advocating for the client, and that is social work. Like, that is what we do as licensed clinicians, is like, look at what does the client need and where is their voice. And again, for the most part, minus like God forbid, self-harm, or they're going to harm somebody else, right? Those, in those cases, we're mandated reporters. But in this case, we're really finding out what the client needs.
Now,
And it's
what about if they just have questions like they cannot figure out their Medicare or their Medicaid because it seems pretty darn confusing. And if you're like 90 years old, you might be very confused about how to get your medicine, where to get it, and what's happening. Are those things you deal with as well?
I would say at a low level, if
Hmm.
it's going to be hours and hours of research or something like that, we might do better with referral out. They might
Hmm.
not want to pay us to do, the hours of phone calls back and forth. They might, or we might
Hmm.
have a better resource for them for a referral. It depends. I mean, also too, I do use, the care patrols and the oases every once in a while, for a placement, right? If they don't know exactly where they want to move to, because sometimes, again, I'm out, I'm running programs, I'm running these community programs, or I run support groups in the community, or I have clients one to one. And sometimes it makes more sense if somebody's going to need like heavy research, that they should, use those folks and go out and view all of the different places. If it's somebody
Right.
who already knows that they want to, I don't know, move to the towers or move to Coachman Square or be here in the area, you know, get a downsizer, do the moving, like help the family, which I've done as well. I had a client where the kiddos were actually out of the country, Zoom with them, right, at a quality hour. And, and I helped the family move the older adult here in Greater New Haven. So it really depends, really, specific to the client.
So tell me how you're a little different than other aging life care counselors there at
So,
the Jewish Service
yeah,
Center.
it's crazy beans. And if anybody knows my early work, it's so funny. My CEO Alyssa Wurtzel is always reminding me. She's like, "You've been having this value conversation for 20 years, Elanit. Like, here you're having it again." And I was like, "Oh yeah, she's right." But like, pretty much we've created an ALCA where we're like, this is what you pay. It's well within means. We don't have any upfront fees. It's $36 every 10 minutes, right? Which is 216 an hour. Most aging life care managers charge, between 250 an hour. We charge 216. Why do we do that? Because Jews give in denominations of 18, which is high, is life. So we have all these gematrias. I love to get into the Kabbalah. Each Hebrew letter has its own numerical value, and we do a lot of math around it too. The Kabbalah stuff is fun.
Hmm.
But so we like to give donations or charity in numbers of 18. So like if you have a Jewish friend come to your kid's wedding and you're like, why did they give me, like multiples of 18? That's why. So it's not that it's charity. You can't write it off, because you are paying for a service. But we want folks to know that if you are paying for the service here at Care Navigators, if you're paying a Jewish family service, that your money is staying within the system because you're choosing to pay. So it's interesting. Like, I'm not going to look at your finances. I'm not going to look at your family system. Like, I would hope that there was, that you would want to, again, pay for the quality of service that you're receiving. Um, and then we have, I mean, my salary, my nurse case manager, her salary, it's all under a grant. So any funds that come in allow us to serve people who we've had homeless clients. I mean, I had a skilled nursing facility call me and say, we have somebody homeless, right? That's not the word we like to use, unhoused, right? And he was truly unhoused. When I met the gentleman, this was somebody with a bachelor's degree who had been working, but due to COVID, they were laid off. And it was a couple years after COVID, and they were unhoused. They were living in their car. And we kind of changed the conversation with that. He was going to be discharged. And I said, try having a conversation with the social worker there, because honestly, you have the same degrees. Like, social workers make nonprofit money a lot of times. So I'm like, you have the same degree, you probably made the same amount of money, and you're not that far away from her socioeconomically. Like, does she want to discharge you to your car, or is there another option? And she was able to get him to a hotel for a couple nights till we could get him into housing on Monday. So
Nice.
that was one of the incredible stories. But by people paying in here, number one, it saves them money. There's no $7,000 up front, no continuous fees. I mentioned to you offline that I had somebody with Alzheimer's who needed an assessment, and she couldn't really tolerate more than that, 20-minute assessment. And I was already in the building. So the family paid $72 for an assessment, rather than some people charge like $3,000. But again, as I've also said offline, I think the social workers who are doing this for profit deserve every penny they're getting. I mean, all of us have to, take continuing education units every year. We have to pass licensing exams. We all have master's degrees or PhDs. And for some reason, historically, this job doesn't make, the same kind of income that like a nurse practitioner does or a doctor. So the people who are doing this for profit, they absolutely deserve every penny that they're getting. We just decided to make a program that served that middle income folks. I've had people who have said, I can pay for the assessment for myself, wait for it, and I want to pay for my sibling. They wanted me to come in and do a full assessment, make a plan with them, a care navigation plan, and do the same for their sibling. But the follow-up emails or the follow-up, they couldn't just keep at the $36 every 10 minutes. So they gave something, right? They paid to JFS, they paid to care navigators, and it allows us to help everybody. But we chose to work in a nonprofit, so this is a choice point. This is something that I've always kind of wanted to do, and that's how we make it work.
That's really awesome. Because,
Yeah.
like I said, before I got into working with seniors, I had no idea that you guys even existed. So
Yeah.
it's just such an invaluable person to know. Like an aging life care associate is such a great person to know because we've never been here before, and
Right.
we're at a place where our parents are older and or we may be getting older and not sure where to turn, what to do, and
Right.
people may be shy about doing it. Like you're just talking about your gentleman who had a great degree and now doesn't know have a place to live. Like it's
Right.
sometimes embarrassing to say, that you can't figure it out yourself. So it's just such a great service, and a service that you can charge by the hour and put it back into your nonprofit. That's a win-win because you're not paying a big upfront charge. And of course, everybody deserves any way they set up their business and any money they earn. But I love that, it's an alternative for people. And you
Yeah,
don't have to be
absolutely.
Jewish. You don't have to be Jewish. So
Yeah, yeah.
you
Oh,
can do it
please.
every
Like most of my clients are not. I would say too, what you're bringing up or the shame, that's a real thing. And we all deal with that being in the community, but I will tell you there are community members who are, again, I call them becoming seniors, these young boomers who are still working, who have come to us because they are still working. And what I'm finding is that it's really my mom's generation, my parents' generation, you know, um, that boomer generation that lived very well. I mean, their parents were coming out of the Great Depression. They pinched pennies. They didn't share financial spreadsheets with their kids. And that next generation enjoyed life, and God bless them for it. I traveled with my family as a kid. We did wonderful things. We really enjoyed. Um, but now some of them don't have money because of a medical incident or something happened or this went wrong, and um and it's okay to say, hey, what do we do next? And this is private because we are clinicians, because we're under HIPAA. Nobody knows if you've come to us. Nobody knows if you go to an aging mastery program in public to learn. Oh, we're delayed a little. Is it delayed on your end? Oh, okay,
Yep.
great. So just got caught. But I'm hearing myself twice. But it's hard.
Oh, you're hearing an echo. That's, oh, I'm kind of hearing it now too. Now that you're saying
Oh, okay.
that.
Okay. Well, we were gonna do it anyway. But my point is, it's okay to be in a public program and then to come in and have that conversation privately because nobody's gonna know about it. We're here to help everybody. And there's really no shame in planning ahead. If anything, I feel like folks could brag about that. Like, I'm choosing how I'm going to live as I grow older. I went for this aging mastery program. Here's the information that I have. Can I share it with you? I'm empowering myself to make better decisions about my own life as I age. Um, I'm choosing not to end up in poverty. I'm choosing to make the decisions in case something happens. I'm not afraid about talking about in case something happens. Or I know that this is for all of us. By being alive, at some point, my life will complete itself, and what that looks like.
And
Everybody,
for, for
who's
me,
alive
for me,
pass away.
for me personally, Elanid, I
Yeah.
have already done my will, my estate planning and all, because I have a lot of businesses that I run, and I
Mhm.
don't want to leave my kids a mess. Should I be hit by a
Yes.
car or something? So I want to have everything in place so they can mourn me properly instead of being like, oh my
Yeah.
God, what did my mother
Yeah.
leave us with? Like, we don't want to deal with any of this. So I'm just having things in place to give you peace of mind, even your burial, even your whatever, if you want to be cremated.
And that's a
Um,
way to save money, actually, if you prepay for that. You don't have to pay taxes on it. You can prepay for it. Go
well,
ahead.
can I tell you what my father-in-law did? And I'm doing this myself, and you could do it here
Yeah.
in Yale. Yale, you could give your body to science. You have to do it like you
Wow.
say beforehand. It's two pages I had to fill out and send to them. And there are stipulations. You do have to die in Connecticut. You can't have like some infectious disease. Like they're not going to go pick you up if you're on vacation in California. But if you're in Connecticut, they'll come get you. Um, but I mean, let's face it, it's
It's
awesome because
beautiful.
my father-in-law thought of this, and when he passed away, it was 94, about 3 years ago, right before COVID, and they let us say goodbye to him, and then they came and got him. He was in New York, so he did it with the New York Medical Center, and in 2 years they'll return the ashes if you'd like them, and it's
It's
also free,
beautiful.
but
Yeah.
second, it's all set up and it's free. So even a cremation is 10 grand or more, right? So I love the fact that you're giving your body to science, and I love the whole thing about it. So, but you do have to do that beforehand. It's not like your kids could decide after you pass away. So that's just like you say, planning ahead.
I also want to tie in the emotional thing that you're giving your children. Like we kind of laughed about it, like time to mourn, but like grieving is such a process. And if all of that is taken care of, they can feel all their feelings. Like that's a huge gift. That's a huge gift that you're giving your
Well,
kids.
one of my friends' dads passed away at 49
Mm,
unexpectedly. He thought he was
mm,
having an asthma attack. He was having a heart attack and was driving himself to the
wow,
hospital. And he had a business that was not doing well. And
mm,
the wife had to go in and find out he owed so much money and had to
mm.
close it down. We went and physically helped them close it down. And
Wow.
it was a really tough time because she had no idea. And it was a big hassle and a big to do. And she had to sell her house to get out of the debt. And she was just like totally changed her life. And she wasn't able to properly mourn her husband who died at 49 with teenage kids because
Oh,
she was thrown into this whole debacle and had to navigate it. So that made me think, I don't want to leave my kids a mess. And you got to think about that. You got to think
the
about like,
truth is we should all have it. Yeah. Anybody who has kids, whatever age you are, you should have all that stuff set up.
and even if you don't want to talk about it, like I have a
Mhm.
father-in-law, another in-law that doesn't want to talk about it. And if you don't want to talk about it, it's going to happen anyway. You're going to pass away anyway, right? So it's
Yeah.
better to let your kids know exactly what your wishes are, even though it might seem morbid. It doesn't mean like you're putting it out there, but you should have a plan. And I just want to
Absolutely.
tell you something funny. My mom went to such a great community. I love it. I love it. She went to a place called Ridge in Reading, and
Oh, yeah,
it's
yeah. It's
perfect
a
for her.
CCRC. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a CCRC where you have to go in independently, and then if anything happens to you, there's also an assisted living, memory care, and nursing home on the grounds. And
Yeah.
when
We'll talk offline. I know the director of social work and everything. My
oh,
friends work there.
she
Yeah.
loves it
It's
there.
beautiful.
But I'll tell you
Yeah.
something funny. When we went to see it, I said, "Mom, let's go see, the building for the assisted living, the memory care, nursing." And she said, "Nope. If I have to go there, just put me there. What am I going to say?"
Exactly.
She didn't even want to go see it
Yeah.
because that's where she's going to go. If that happens to her, that's where she's going to go. And she was fine with it. I'm like, okay. So I haven't even seen it yet, but she's been there a year and a half happily. So it's all good.
That's
But
beautiful.
Eleni, you've been wonderful. And before we
Oh,
leave, I just want you to tell people about the books you've written and why,
oh
and a
gosh.
little bit about what they're about.
Let me grab one.
Okay. So Elanit, amazing. If you want to get in touch with her, it's 203-389-5599, extension 113. Questions, concerns about yourself or about your parents. If you want to plan, if you want a new place to live, if you can't figure out your finances, if you can't figure out your illnesses, or you have parents you're worried about and you live far away. We've had a lot of cases during COVID where
Yeah.
people finally went to see their dad out in California and didn't realize he had Alzheimer's because on the phone,
Yeah.
he was perfectly lucid. And when they went
Yeah.
out there, noticed he wasn't showering, he wasn't eating, he wasn't taking his medicine, he was like very confused. So if you are, worried about your parents, you don't live nearby, or a case I see
Yeah.
often, have a lot of siblings and nobody's on the same page,
Those
Ilanit
are my
is the way to
favorites.
call.
I love
Because
the family systems conversation. I'm an old school therapist. I love it. Yeah, yeah.
well, what's also great about that is it puts the onus more on you as the
Yeah.
therapist, the helper. So you as the child are not saying, oh, you should move mom or you should do
Yeah.
this or that. Like it puts somebody else telling them, not, the loved ones. So I think that makes it a lot easier. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your books?
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah. I wrote a couple books. You can find them on Amazon. The quickest way to do it is there are links on my website, remiculture.com. So that's ramiculture.com. This is one of my books, Stitches for Seniors. This is a good one. There's just, 30 stitches or suggestions for re-empowerment because my whole thing is autonomy. Again, our industry calls it person-centered care, but I really believe that it's more about a spark, that little piece of you that chooses your quality of life. And even if it's out there and wild and different, you can still have the life that you want. So this is just, it's a fun workbook. What is that one? Difference
Give
between
us one of
feeling.
your stitches. Give us one of your stitches.
Yeah, I was going to say, here's one. The difference between stitch 16 is the difference between a feeling and an intuition. So it's just how to do it, sitting with yourself, differentiating between the feeling in your stomach and a thought in your mind, and then going through when again, we use those past experiences, those resilience skills of when you walked into a room and you knew something was off and you didn't you were like, why do I think that? And you stayed and then something odd happened. Or when you listened to your intuition and something good happened. Or when you walked into a room and you thought something was off, but you realized that it wasn't a gut thing and it was more of an intellectual. So it walks you through how to do that. But they're really quick. They're fun. There are all these assisted living, long-term care, suggestions because it is for older adults. There's another book, The Bucket and the Stone, which is really the same stitches, but for everyone. We're going to do more of them, obviously. But this is a good one. I always recommend, just go through, play with some of them. You don't have to do all the stitches. They're good suggestions for life. You can pick one out, pick two of them out. And then I always recommend Being Mortal. That's such a great way to start this conversation before you call us. It's such an easy read. Dr. Gawande wrote such a beautiful book about really his own experience and his father's aging. And they were both doctors when they made those end of life decisions, what decisions they made as a family, and how the system works. It's a really good basic how-to without reading about healthcare policy. I did that for you. I took that class for you.
Well, thank you, Eleni. You have been awesome. So much information has been given. And if anybody wants to find you in New Haven, and you
Yes,
service New
Jewish
Haven.
Family Service. Yes, Jewish Family Service of Greater New Haven. So jfsnh.org. And my email is the same, which is elinder, my first letter, and then linder at jfsnh.org. And that's probably the easiest way to get me because, if I'm in with a client, I'm not going to pick up. And you'll get the same, all my clients get the same. So if I'm in with you and the phone rings, I'm not picking up as well.
And do you have colleagues that you refer to if people are not in New Haven, if not in the New
Yes,
Haven area?
yes. Yes. So we do. I mean, again, if folks can pay, we refer directly to Alka because those people are vetted. Again, I went through the same process, and I knew the regional person in my area, and I was like, really? Like, how long do I wait? Like, what else do you need now? But in the end, like I really appreciate that process because when I've looked at the other professionals on there, incredible. And then, each Jewish Family Service, again, they're nonprofit organizations, so they're under these umbrellas, and each one runs differently. So the JFS up in Hartford has their own home care agency, but they do not have an aging life care program. So it really depends. You have to. That's part of what we do is knowing the resources in the area.
Well, thank you so much. You've been a blessing. I really appreciate you having you on, and good luck with all your books in the future. And if
Thank you.
anybody wants to get a hold of Elanit, please give her a call. If you want to plan for
Yep.
yourself, for your family, for your loved ones, for your relatives, for your parents, give her a call. She is going to be there for you. Thanks so much,
Thank you so
Elanit.
much. This
Much
was so
appreciated.
fun. I
Thank
appreciate
you. Oh my gosh, there is so much to know. Before I started this whole journey with seniors and memory care issues, I I didn't know that these counselors existed. And now that I have found them, they're such an invaluable source. And then in speaking with Ilanit and finding out that she works at a nonprofit and her salary is under a grant. So any money that you give goes right to the Jewish Family Services. It's like a win-win. That's a no-brainer. So I was really happy to have her on the show. And I hope that if you need services, you will reach out to her. Thank you so much. Till next time.